Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
I remember the parades when people and the stories lined up nicely, and then a bomb went off. Welcome to The Blacklist Exposed. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I am Agent Aaron Peterson, the one guy working at Blacklist Inc. who absolutely refuses to clean the prisoner cubes. So instead of that mess, we're going to talk about number 12 on the Blacklist, The Decembrist, which aired November 10th, 2014, and was the show's fall finale. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist. We offer you a new episode every Wednesday. Do want to reiterate, the show is obviously going away for a little bit. We are going to, and you'll talk about it a little bit more, but we are going to have another episode in a couple weeks, kind of addressing your feedback. But when we come back, that cycle will change a little bit. We'll talk about that later.
Absolutely. And before we actually talk about the awesome fall finale, Todd from Illinois had a comment about the scimitar that he sent in. Said, "Hey, Troy and Aaron, the scimitar gets 9 long cons. It's a pity that we didn't get a visit from Mr. Kaplan in that episode because of the implication that Agent What's-Her-Face actually executed the scimitar."
Mm-hmm.
They got me on the Berlin's daughter deal, although it begs the question of whose body parts were sent to Berlin in prison. And that's something I hope that we get to learn more about as the show progresses myself. And then does Red know for sure that Tom Keene is the source? He seemed pretty confident when he brought it up in their conversation in the car. This is Todd in Illinois wondering if my professor is a nuclear scientist.
I know the answer to number 3.
We all do now.
Yeah. Yes. I'm predicting, hang on, let's pretend we haven't seen the episode. I'm predicting that absolutely Red knows that Tom is the source. Oh, genius.
Well, and the question I have on that is when he's bringing it up to Liz, does he actually know? And is he just grilling Liz until Liz finally says, okay, fine, I lied?
She came clean really quick. I really thought she would give a little pushback on that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I definitely think he knew the whole time.
Well, we had another call come in and comment using our send voicemail button at the website at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Take it away.
I fell asleep last week and I binged all week just to see what I missed. Last night, I didn't even turn around in my own bedroom. Wow. I wonder what old Berlin did to drive her away. Dang, this is the best show ever.
She was so excited about the show, she forgot to even say her name. So thank you, mystery lady. I'm gonna assume maybe you were taking the same pills Wrestler was. That might have prompted those issues. I don't know. But thank you very much for the call. That was very cool. We asked you to speculate last week who ultimately is pulling the strings when it comes to Red in Berlin.
Yeah, there were 2 major themes that we actually had amongst everybody out there. So now that we know the fall finale has aired, and we can say basically that half of you were right. And half of you basically need to stick to watching TV rather than trying to write for TV because you were way off.
Wow. 1% said Tom, huh?
Yeah, 1% said Tom, 50% said Fitch, and 40% of you said the mysterious person who we have not yet met, which would have been cool if that would have actually played out that way. But no, it was Alan in the end.
Yeah, and I keep saying Finch. I don't know why. I think I've got a bird thing. I just keep saying Finch, and it's actually Fitch. Fitch. Alan Fitch.
And I keep saying Fitz because I'm a Scandal watcher. So I think we'll just call him Alan going forward, and we'll be good.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
I mean, should we start calling him Ray? Because that's what Alan calls Ray.
Is it? I just call him Hawkeye. That's really what I want to call him. And unfortunately, you young kids don't get that reference, but I keep calling him Hawkeye.
It's been fun with the profiling questions here in the first half of the season. If you like it, let us know. Give us a review in iTunes. You can do that. goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist and click on the iTunes link and leave us a review. Let us know if you like the profiling question of the week. We will give you the one to think about for the long winter break in just a bit. And now with that, let's go into the awesome fall finale, The Decemberist, with our episode case profile.
We're going to begin this episode where we left off last week with Red confronts Berlin, and he's finally getting the details on their decades-old dispute. Apparently, things were put in motion by the Decembrist. And 1991, there was a bomb that went off. Do you want to explain this? I'll let you do it.
Well, yeah, apparently there was a bomb blows up a bunch of what they call the old guard. And it's a group of people that are trying to save communism in Russia as the Berlin Wall is coming down and the Persian Gulf War is happening. And they basically take out all the people that could basically keep communism alive in Russia in one fell swoop. And then, what happens after that. But in order to make this kind of stick, because there was a survivor, Miloš, a.k.a. Berlin, we now know that Red was set up to be the bomber, and then started this war between Miloš and Red to divert what we think is some bigger dastardly plan amongst this group that Alan works for.
Which we'll get to that point in a little bit. When it comes to this bombing, that's essentially everything that put the wheels in motion, right? For everything we're watching now. So everything really started 20-some years ago.
Well, everything that started in the Berlin finding Red started with this bombing 20 years ago or whatever it was.
Right, which means whoever is ultimately behind it will be a member, I would guess, of that group. Fitch's group, correct?
Yeah, Alan and his company are going to basically be the ones that are coming after him. And Alan did a really good job explaining that to Red. I'm the only friend you have, and if I go down, there's no one protecting you, and these other people are going to start coming after you one by one. So since the Decembrist was number 12, and if we go back to our alias roots and think about the 12, could it be that each member of this group is number 654321 on the list?
Well, I think 1 is going to be the very last person we ever meet on the show, obviously. I think it's obviously.
Well, you said it was Liz, right? Liz was number 1?
I think that's an option, yeah. I think it's either going to be Liz or whoever it is that is so closely associated with Liz that Red feels the need to be close to her, because I'm still not convinced that he's her dad. I still think there's definitely an option, which we'll get a little bit more in depth in that in a little bit, but I still think there's an option that she's someone else's daughter, that he's just wanting her close for whatever the end game is. But she's not necessarily safe. Now, Aram identifies Morozov, who's basically who they think is the Decemberist. It turns out he's not, by DNA from a 20-year-old coffee cup. Now, this I have to say, I loved the finale. I think the finale is probably one of the best episodes of the season. I think it was nearly flawlessly executed, except for this ridiculous plot point. Ridiculous.
Yeah, DNA profiling is, you couldn't do that back then, but now we can because we have the magic of technology.
It was just, so they found this guy in a matter of about 8 seconds, I think, because they dug up an old coffee cup. Fine. You got to, sometimes you have to suspend disbelief for things like this. It's just the way it goes. Keen tells Red, obviously she still has some faith in him, or she assumes he can handle it quicker than her unit can. And he goes to Moscow with Berlin to confront Morozov. I hope I say that right. And Berlin promptly assassinates him in an elevator. But before he dies, he tells Fitch, or he fingers Fitch. He says, Fitch is the guy. Fitch is the guy that set this all in motion.
And I wonder why that is. Why would he give up somebody so easily? Granted, he's got gunpoint at him, and he actually recognizes Miloš standing there in front of him, because I think he actually dressed as Miloš by name. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing I could think of why he would give him up so quickly, because he fears for his life. But as the financial minister of a country, you would think that he's got some other protection or some other kind of backup plan that says, hey, if you kill me, this is what's going to happen to you. So let's just have a normal man-to-man conversation about this, not a gun-to-gun conversation.
Troy, when I'm in an elevator and a bunch of guys come in that elevator and they shoot everybody I'm friends with and then put a gun to my head and said, tell me a name or I'm going to shoot you too, I take them seriously and I tell them whatever they want to know. In fact, I'm making stuff up.
Well, that's a key. Make stuff up, right? That'd be more plausible. I give you a name and I still get a bullet in the head. So if you think about it from that perspective, just tell me it's Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny.
No, because then you sound like you're trying to be tough. It's Santa Claus. Yeah. Yet. You don't do that. I'd say exactly. I'd give him his address. I'd give him his social security number if I had it. Be like, you know what? It's Hank. Go down the street. Hank's there. He's getting a donut right now. I'll drive you. That's what I would do. I'm telling you right now, if somebody ever catches me in an elevator and shoots all my friends and asks me where Troy Heinrichs is, I'm driving them to your house. I'm that guy.
Thanks, comrade. Appreciate it. I thought the Russians stuck together.
I'm letting you know. So that's one of the big plot points. The other the major plot this week had to do with Keen and Tom. See, a guard, or what is it, Harbor Master? Is that what it was?
I think Harbor Master.
Yeah, Harbor Master finds Tom in the freighter. He's sneaking around. Get off the ship, man. We know this is going to end badly for him. I really didn't think he was going to die, but I thought for sure that he would at least get roughed up or something. But he finds Tom in the freighter, and while they're debating it, while Keen and her giant bodyguard are debating it, Tom does like some Jet Li moves, a little Cirque du Soleil, and strangles the guy. Did you see that? Were you shocked? I was shocked.
Well, I was shocked that Tom actually took it to the place where he actually ended up killing him. I thought eventually he was going to let go based on Liz's command, I guess you could call it. Mm-hmm. And when he did let go, I thought he was still going to be alive, just doing the big gasp for breath. But when he fell over and he was dead, I was like, oh, well, I guess I hung on a little bit too long there, honey. My bad.
I did think something was going to have to happen because they had to move this along. He has to get out of there at some point, and she has to make that decision. I don't necessarily agree with all of we had to kill him, because you've got the FBI badge. She could have just said, hey, it's a federal matter. I can't discuss it with you. It's confidential, da-da-da-da. I think that would have bought her way out. You disagree?
I don't know. I mean, the biggest thing that I kept focusing on was the fact that it's been 4 months since they had the outing in the apartment building. And if a cell phone is ringing constantly like that after 4 months, I'd be chucking that thing out the window. That would have driven me just crazy. Man, he's really popular. It's like I would have been like stomping on that phone, smashing it to pieces.
Absolutely. And one thing, and I thought this is actually a cool introduction. We've talked about this for a couple weeks since we found out for 100% that Tom was back, is that at the beginning of the episode, you get bit by bit exactly how she got Tom into that freighter, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead here, but I thought this was really great because one of the things that I really enjoyed about this episode in particular was kind of the callbacks they had to previous episodes throughout this, I guess, 30 episode saga, right? 22
Absolutely,
in season 1 and 8 in this season. I can do math. So this opening sequence of the jumping around in the days was very similar to the interrogation sequence from Berlin Part 2. Then you had the kind of splattering in the box, which was very reminiscent of Ansel Garrick Part 1 with Lou Lee's death.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have the awesome shooting to Milos at the end, which is very reminiscent of Diane Fowler's death.
Can we go back to calling him Berlin? Because it's just confusing me.
Got to keep up. It's going fast.
I realized his name changed in this episode, but it didn't for the entire season. So let's just keep calling him Berlin. Otherwise, I'm going to get confused. Milos is Berlin and Berlin is Milos. We got it. Berlin.
Sounds cooler though.
For me, comrade.
For you.
Milos.
Yeah, so that's what I really liked about this episode was the fact that it kind of harkened back to some of those really good points of the Blacklist throughout the 30 episode journey, and then brought it all into that one episode, which was just nicely wrapped up until we got our big reveal of what's coming next.
The one thing that stood out for me as somebody that was paying probably more attention than I should, remember in the premiere, you've got the hooded guy at the car with Tom's glasses. So who is that? Is that the sniper guy? Because they never show his face. And when we've pointed that out several times throughout this podcast, they do never show his face. But it's definitely meant to allude to Tom because they look like Tom's glasses.
But if we go back to the opening of this episode, he's been in the boat ever since he left the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't have been Tom. So
exactly.
Then you have to go, okay, well, is it Samar? Is it Sniper Joe? Or is it somebody else altogether?
Well, I definitely think it's somebody else because throughout this episode, he didn't have his glasses, right? So Whoever it was, they had the glasses, but it wasn't Tom. We thought it was Tom. It was not.
And the thing that I go back to is the dream sequence episode where she wakes up and Tom's in the bedroom, but he's standing up and his glasses are on the nightstand. Mm-hmm. So it clearly shows that in her dream, his glasses were not on his face, which means he hasn't had his glasses since the apartment.
Ah, very astute, sir. Very astute.
So
I like to use that word. If you're new to this podcast, I like to say astute a lot.
So my crackpot theory is that there's a clone. There's a clone Tom.
What? Shut up.
Crackpot theory. Crackpot theory.
Crazy theory. I'll tell you what. A clone shows up, we're going to have problems because that's a little too soap opera for me. No clones. Keep the clones away. All right. Well, Tom makes him a deal. He says, I'll lead you to Fitch because Fitch gets snatched by Berlin / Mulosh or whatever. It sounds like a stew. It's Berlin. And he'll lead them to him if they let him go. Now, he and Wrestler have this little square off, which I thought was kind of nice because they're in the car and he kind of alludes to, what are you, her boyfriend? Because he's very defensive about Keen. And I like that. That was a nice little moment between them. But then what happens is when they finally get the information as to where Fitch is, they actually do let him go. What the hell was that?
Yeah, that's the one part that I keep scratching my head on because the first thing that comes to mind is when the heck did he get an ankle monitor in the first place? And if he's got an ankle monitor, isn't there some like remote system, a machine somewhere that's keeping track of the ankle monitor? And the minute it comes off, someone's going to be alerted that the ankle monitor was removed that's other than Wrestler and Keen. And then I would expect this behavior from Liz through the course of this episode, so it makes sense. But the fact that Wrestler allows it just makes me go, maybe he was spacing because of the drugs, or maybe he just enjoys the thrill of the chase.
No, see, here's what I think. I think because she played that so smoothly with his addiction that he feels like he owes her.
That's exactly what it was from last week, right? Yep. I won't tell about the pills, and you owe me one.
And I see that, like, some people are going to see that as he did it as a generosity, and it wasn't a totally manipulated move on her part. I think that was a very strategic move on her part. As I've seen throughout the season, she has, even though she had her little emotional breakdown at the end, I think she has turned quite the corner from who she was. I think she knew she would need that later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think? Curious. All right. Well, Red confronts Fitch, claims he set him up by putting the whole thing in motion, and he claims that he sets him up by putting this whole thing in motion. Fitch seems to not have much belief that he actually did anything. He's sticking to the fact that I honored my deal with you, Red. What this happened before I made this deal. So the deal was made, we assume, 20 years ago, right? Or little after this event. So at least 20 years ago.
Which would have been 1994 if we assume present day.
Correct.
So that's 3 years after the bombing.
That's our assumption. I don't know if that time frame is established, but that's our assumption. And he sticks to that he honored the deal. And any plans in motion were before their deal. So this is really of Red's own doing. This is Red's own fault. And I do like that at the end of the conversation, because obviously Red is trying to put this off on him, that all of these things are happening because of him. Alan throws back in his face and says, hey, you can't play the victim in all this. I thought that was a nice turn because we don't get enough of that. People reminding him, hey, this is your fault. Stop putting it all on us.
Yeah, you have the evidence or the information or whatever it is that could basically bring down the organization, and they're not too happy about that. And you did that before I agreed to protect you. So exactly. Keep in mind that I held up my end of the deal, and whatever you got coming to you is coming to you if I die. So be on the lookout.
It was a good conversation, and it led to a better one, because then Tom's information that we just talked about a few minutes ago leads them to Fitch, and Berlin had captured him basically and orchestrated the most awkward neck-shaped bomb I've seen in a while, because it's like a rectangle. You'd think it'd be round, right? Yeah,
it'd be equivalent of a pipe bomb, but the pipe bomb actually went all the way around in a PVC right corner contraption with a, I guess, timer device or cell phone or something.
That apparently could not be turned off. They did kill his wife. That was his wife that was laying there dead by him, correct?
I would assume so.
Margaret.
She talks about Margaret, right? We had a great run together. I thought he was talking about her in the past tense, like he knew he was going to die. But then on the second watch and saw her laying there, it was like, okay, well, is that Margaret?
I think that was Margaret. That's the impression I got. They were married for 51 years. Very sad. And before we get to the big scene, and keep in mind, if you're a first-time listener to the show, I should remind you at the beginning, But we talk about the basic plot of the episode, and then we'll break down some characters. So we will get a little bit more in detail in a little bit. So don't worry, we're not leaving that stuff out. But he has this moment. Alan Alda has this moment with the D-bomber, Mr. Bomb Squad, who's trying to defuse the bomb. And he talks about all the lives he's basically cost. And I thought this was actually in an episode that was filled with action and suspense and drama. This is probably one of the most beautiful moments in the entire season for me. When he says, when he goes through that and he's explaining all he's done, the damage he's done, you can tell he has personal loss in his eyes, and he just doesn't want any more on his conscience as he goes. And all he does is he looks at this the bomb expert and says, "Go home, Mike." It's 3 words, but Alan Alda is just such a good actor. It was beautiful to me. I don't know did you feel the same way, or is that just I'm just a sap?
Well, I think it was a good way to make the difference between Alan and Ray, right? Fitch and Reddington, for those that aren't following along at home. But it's the difference between, even though Alan has done all these things and has really messed up, he's done it assumedly for the greater good for the country, right? For the United States. And because of that, the losses have been acceptable, but the question is to what extent on his own humanity. And that's why he's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Go home, Mike. Versus Reddington, where he's done everything to further his own agenda, his own personal afflictions. And yes, Reddington apparently has suffered loss. Apparently his family was murdered on Christmas Eve in this horrific fire or whatever happened, brutally murdered, butchered, based on the story that we're supposed to believe. At the same time, though, would he do that same thing? Would he finally just lay on the sword and be like, I'm done, it's over, whatever? I don't think Reddington would do that. I think Reddington is different, and because of that, he wants to get his end versus where Fitch was like, I'm good. I've served my purpose, and my time is done. It's caught up to me. So good juxtaposition of the 2 characters.
Absolutely. It was just a beautiful moment. Very well done. Loved it. Now, before Mama had a baby and its head popped off, Fitch gives Red what I like to call Season 2 primer info. This is basically everything you need to know that's coming the next portion of the season. I felt like he spills the beans about pretty much everything he can, but also in a Blacklist cryptic way, so that you don't have everything you need, just enough to get you going, to get your appetite wet, so to speak, so that you come back in the spring and you find out what's going on. So here's what we learned was most important from this conversation. While he's sitting there, while Red is having a conversation with Fitch, he's got the bomb necklace on, and he's sitting there having this conversation. And you can tell Red is very emotional. I think Red genuinely has an affection for Fitch. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even in all their conversations back with Ansel Garrick, back with Berlin, this episode, I think at the end of the day that these 2 people were friends. And there's a reason why Alan looked out for his buddy Ray specifically from this group. And that's going to be the interesting backstory. I really hope with this show that we get a little bit more of the backstory stuff like we did with Dembe, kind of like we did with Tom. We didn't get the full episode of what happened in the 4 months, but we got enough information to get us the answers. So I would really like to see this relationship, what happened with it back in 1991, 1994, and get some of that backstory. And I hope that we would get that as we try to build out this new Fulcrum story. That's Fulcrum, Fulcrum, for those that weren't able to hear it actually pronounced on the television. And,
it was a little difficult.
And the first thing, of course, that popped into my mind, it's like, okay, Fulcrum, person, place, thing. Is this the Rambaldi version of the Blacklist to Alias?
You're stuck on Alias, aren't you?
There's so much that just keeps tying in. I mean, it happened exactly like we said, right? Yeah, 30 episodes in, we solved, what the first primer mystery was, and now we have a completely new mystery, just like Alias.
Well, here, let's go over what we learned from this episode. From this conversation, here's what we learned, according to Fitch, is important. Like Troy was talking about the Fulcrum. Now, Fulcrum is defined as a support or point of rest on which a lever turns in moving a body. How do you see that? Now, that could be something that I think you could take it literally. You could take it as it's something that opens a vault or triggers a bomb, something along those lines, a lever of a physical placement, or could you take it in a less literal sense? Is there a less literal way to take that?
I would take it as the less literal sense. It's a piece of information that could change the course of a body, meaning this specific group that Alan was a part of.
Okay. That's interesting. I really want to know what you guys think of that. And if you want to get your thoughts in and your ideas, your crackpot theories, make sure to send it to us over the next week, because when we put together our feedback episode, that would be something I'd really like to hear what you guys think about that. He also says his death will trigger a series of events leading up to 2017. Now, 2017, this isn't the first time we've heard this date. So obviously, that's when whatever the big thing is going to happen, yeah?
Yeah, and that's 3 years. That's 5 seasons. So I was doing the math. That's about 120 episodes. So that, completes the syndication primer. So I think we're all set just to let this play on out.
Way to have a business plan, sir. Way to have a business plan. Well, we'll see exactly how that pans out.
Is this like a Nostradamus thing, or what is like predictions? Is this like a 2012 year? 2017 is the new 2012?
I think so. As long as they don't do it like X-Files, where they have this date and then we never find out what really happens on that date. I'm still mad about that, by the way. All right, so people are against him. And this is against Red. He says, people are against you, Red. Mitchum and Hobbs can be persuaded, but Jasper is with the Chinese. So Jasper is going to come up again. I think they're going to have to make Jasper change sides a little bit.
Why does this sound like an episode of 24 all of a sudden?
It does. Got all this information. And here is the biggest information, okay? And I know it's important because he repeats it like 8 times. But there's a safe in St. Petersburg. Sorry, just kidding. There's a safe in St. Petersburg on the 2nd floor with a combination 83044. That's 83044, which is Margaret's birthday. God bless her. And they were married for 51 years, he also says. And then he repeats the combination like 8 more times. So 83044 is extremely important.
And in case you didn't know, have you heard there's a safe somewhere in St. Petersburg?
On the 2nd floor. Boom.
I'm going to have Anastasia in my head now because I kept singing that song all night after he said St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, which again is Russia, right? Or is this a different St. Petersburg, like St. Petersburg in the U.S.? I'm
thinking probably Russia. Sure. Wherever it is, that's where it's probably some country we've never heard of, because that would throw us off, and that's what they want to do. But that's your information. That's what he said. Does any of this lead you to understand where they're going?
Nowhere at all.
Yeah.
When he said Fulcrum, I was like, okay, Fulcrum is definitely a formula, a thing. I don't think it's a person. Although, since the Blacklist is all about people, although we did have a blacklister that wasn't a person with Monarch Douglas Bank or Monarch Trust, depending on which country you lived in and what they showed you on TV, I would say that it's a piece of information. That's where I'm going, because Red has it. At least that's what we're inclined to believe, right? He kind of nods at him like, do you have the Fulcrum? Yeah. Yes, I have the Fulcrum.
That's a very specific word, though. It's not like, hey, do you have the stuff? Do you have the info? Do you have the intel? Something like that. The Fulcrum is a very specific thing, and it has the literal translation. It's not so ambiguous. It's not, you know what I mean?
Well, it's like when you have corporate America and you have projects at work, and you have to, it's project, ISIS, or project, Slushy, or project Grapefruit. It's like that. It's a code name for something.
Where do they go for feedback? I forgot the email address.
goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback or goldenspiralmedia.com/the blacklist. Either one will do just fine.
Okay. Go there and let us know what you guys think, because I'm really curious what everybody thinks about these, because these are obviously going to be the points going forward. So just keep those in mind. Hopefully we covered them. The Fulcrum, 2017, Mitchum and Hobbs are fine, but Jasper's with the Chinese. Safe, St. Petersburg, 2nd floor, combination 83044. There you go. And the cliffhanger portion of the episode, Red and Liz unite. I love the moment. I think it was a beautiful moment. Did you think it came a little too easy?
The biggest thing that I took away from that scene was and this is where it goes back, like kind of hearkening on all the other past episodes of the saga, to the episode where he played the music box.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad used to play this music box, and he just happened to have a copy of that music box. And so this was kind of that same scene, but he kisses her on the forehead.
It was very sweet.
Like a father would.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that Red is Liz's father. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he kisses her on the forehead like a father would.
Obviously trying to imply, hey, guess what? I could be. Right?
Absolutely. He could be doing it as a parent would. And our Red is Liz's mom theory could still be in play.
I don't subscribe to that theory, okay, at all. I'm glad you do. I'm glad you think he had a sex change. I'm not subscribing. That's a little too crackpot for me. I'm still not on board. Possible? Sure. But would you get that cool, raspy Spader voice with that? I don't think so.
So would you vote for Red sex change over Tom clone? Which one do you like better?
I don't like either one at all. Neither one. I want both of them to go away. Make these nutty theories stop. But I did like it. The only thing I thought was it seemed like they had been more at odds for the last 7 episodes. And I felt like they came back together a little too quickly. You know what I mean? I just felt like after all the manipulation and the distrust and the lies and everything else, it just felt like this warm moment. I don't know if it seemed rushed to a degree.
So were they at odds, though? Because this is where I kind of put up a red flag.
Well, yeah, that's true. They were still communicating quite well. And
yeah, because, I mean, it's not like Red wasn't talking to Liz, right? Red was just preoccupied with Berlin, and Liz was just preoccupied with Tom. And I did like the point in this episode where he's like, okay, here's the guy's name. Click, I got to go. It just hangs up on Red. How many times does that ever happen?
Yeah, very, very rarely, yeah.
But, when you think about it, they both had their own crap. I put this as it's okay that they're kind of bonding again, if you will. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, to what end, to what purpose? Because there's still a bunch of secrets that happen immediately after they get back together.
Okay, that's fair. That makes sense. So now I don't feel so bad. Now I enjoy it more. I already liked the moment. I thought it was a very sweet moment. It's just, I guess I felt like it was a little forced for me. But I guess when you put that in perspective, that's why I like doing this show with you, Troy. Sometimes you make me look at things that I wouldn't normally look at. And then you reward me later with stupid theories that make no sense. Now let's go to this week's characters. There's no Mr. Kaplan, though there is a lot of mention, and there is no Mr. Vargas. I missed that turtleneck. But Tom does know Mr. Kaplan.
Or at least knows of him, or of her. Yeah,
that's possible. But to me, that seems like it should have been an indicator to either us or Keen, I'm not sure which, that maybe he knows Red a little bit more than we thought.
Well, and we only got bits and pieces of the interrogation. Maybe Liz had mentioned Mr. Kaplan and the cowboy, and because she did ask about Jolene Parker in the interrogation. So maybe she let Mr. Kaplan slip at some point. We just didn't get to see it as the audience.
Oh, there you go. That's a good point. Okay. It was an interesting aside, and it took me by surprise. I'm like, whoa, he knew Mr. Kaplan. Aram and Dembe, they're more background characters again. Aram is the one who basically discovers the 20-year-old DNA. And that ridiculous. It's still ridiculous. I'm sorry. As much as I love the show, I can't get past that. But I just like, all right, disbelief. We'll just move to the side. It's a James Bond movie for a moment. And Dembe, he was really just once again in the background. Really would like to see, if you watch the episode, he's always listed as guest starring. I want him to be starring next season. That's what I want. That's my dream. Make him a full-time cast member. Give him a few more things to do. I really like his presence. Samar wasn't even in the episode. Was she even there in the background? I don't remember seeing her once.
Well, there was the conversation. Harold said, have your people at Mossad go into their intel and see what you can find out about this person. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if she was standing there or if it was just one of those like stand-in doubles and we just saw the backside. I didn't quite catch the glimpse of it because it went by so fast. Mm-hmm. And that's really shocking. I would assume that Mossad would have been wrapped up into this story somehow because of the introduction of Mossad into the task force. So there would had to have been some kind of tie-in that Mossad helped with the bombing in 91, or Mossad, helped with sending the bones to Berlin in jail. There had to have been some tie-in, and there wasn't. So does that mean Mossad has more of a tie-in with the Fulcrum story?
There you go. Okay. Interesting. Now, Cooper pretty much just barks orders. That's really what he does. He does. I really thought we were going to get something where he knew about Keen keeping Tom. Turns out he didn't know the whole time. It doesn't seem like he knows anyway. Unless they haven't played that card yet, it seems like from the conversation she was having with Mr. Freighter Bodyguard and Tom that nobody knows that she has him yet.
And I really loved Cooper when he kind of looked the other way. So, he still has Liz's back when he's like, well, Red has some informants, and I'm sure Red will get this information.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Agent Keen? Wink, wink.
Yeah, and he basically let her tell Red, which led to later where he was assassinated, right?
Yeah, which clearly says that he is also a little bit shady, which means when she does something shady, he's going to overlook it. It's always like this, like, I'll do something for you if you do something for me. And I think that's one of the main themes we're seeing as Red operates. Now we're seeing that with everybody.
Absolutely. The only thing I would have liked is to see Cooper get a bigger part in this episode. I felt like he was just the guy moving the pieces around without really getting involved in the action. I would have liked to see more of him because throughout the season we've had that a little bit, and I really think Harry does a good job.
Well, and especially with the little nod at the beginning of the season with the whole Kuwait and the giving you my only piece of information about that and setting up that whole storyline, and to have it not pay off until the second half of the season, that'll be interesting to see how that comes into play.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to point out Jeff Christensen chimed in on our group, and he just wanted to say Fulcrum as in leverage. Do you see that as leverage? I guess it could be taken that way.
I just hear Fulcrum and I say, let's bring back Chuck, because Chuck was awesome on NBC, and maybe John Bokenkamp is trying to make a play.
I didn't watch Chuck.
Maybe a ROM is the new Intersect. I don't know.
You're saying a bunch of stuff. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a great show. You should watch it. It's on
Netflix. I hear
Netflix.
you talking, but I don't hear anything. I know that Yvonne Strahovski was on there, and she was on 24, and I like her a lot.
And she did an awesome stranglehold, hanging from the ceiling choke thing, too. So now you have to rate between Yvonne's and Tom's.
Tom was like a ninja, man. Did you see that? I thought he was just like a guy that read books at the beginning of last season. Now he's bouncing around like a ninja.
How did he get up in the air? That's what I was trying to figure out. If he's chained to the floor.
Because he's a ninja. That's why.
Okay.
That's all there is. That's all you need to know. When you're a ninja, you defy all laws of gravity and physics, man.
Does your ninja mask get sweaty with the beard? That's what I want to know.
Oh, it probably does. Probably pokes through a little bit. That'd be awkward. It's scratchy. You don't want that. So Wrestler doesn't have a whole lot to do, but what he does have to do doesn't involve pills. So the pills don't come up. So do you think he's kicked that habit? Is it done? Is that put to rest? Did he actually beat it, or do you think we're going to see that again?
I'm going to say he beat it. I'm going to say that the incident with Matthew in the woods scared the bejesus out of him, and I think he's good now. He's clean. You
know what I'm going to say? I think the showrunners realized that plot wasn't going anywhere, so he's done. He has kicked the habit. It's just that's one of the things that just didn't work, I think, this season so far. And it's good that I hope it's done. I really don't want it to come back. It's a small, minor character tick that doesn't really need to be there. But he also does that squaring off with Tom at the car, and we talked about it briefly. Now, do you think he was defensive because he just doesn't trust Tom, or because he's being defensive of Keem because he has affection, feelings, friendship / romantic?
Well, that's what we mentioned back in episode Blacklist Exposed, episode 1. That was our season 2 preview, and it's even our picture. We posed the question of, will there be some kind of romantic entanglement between the two of them? So I'm going to still say that, yeah, it's 100% jealousy.
Oh, 100%, huh?
Yep. I think that they set that up at the end of last year on purpose. But then the question, of course, comes into, does she still have feelings for Tom? Why did she keep the last name? Et cetera, et cetera. So maybe it is just, partner loyalty. But I think a relationship between them would be fun, at least for a short while.
See, I'm of the mindset, I always prefer a Mulder-Scully relationship where it's not romantic until the spin-off movie, because it complicates the show, and it generally, I'm not saying all shows, but it generally leads it down the path of melodrama. And that's the one thing I want the show to avoid. I think you have enough characters and affections, and I think you can make a solid partnership. Or at least if you're going to do it, wait till you're closer to the end. Don't do it yet. Don't make the same mistake Alias made. I think they that relationship was way too early for that show, and it ended up affecting some of the plot lines. I just don't want it to affect the show. Make sense?
Including the season 5 plot line of Alias. That was weird.
Yeah, that was dumb. It got better, but it started. Enough Alias. I'm sure people are listening going, I didn't watch the show and I don't care. I only care about Blacklist. So, Berlin. Goodbye, Peter Stormare. I love you, man. You are a wacky, wacky individual who is creepy as hell in everything you do. I still really want you to play a nice guy in something. Maybe show up in some Tim Allen comedy or something. Play a nice guy, a sweet guy. Because you are way too creepy and evil in everything you do. Good at it, but too evil. Are you going to miss him?
He was a nice guy. He spared Red's life. He was willing to work with Red.
And then Red shot him after getting drunk with him.
Because he killed Myrna and he put Cooper in the hospital and he had to get coming to what was coming to him. He served his purpose. He's done.
Did he have it coming, though? Because, I mean, to be fair, if this was reversed, Red would do the exact same thing.
Come on. If you had a scab on your body that literally itched for 20 years and you finally had a chance to pull it off, wouldn't you not pull it off?
I'd like to think I'm more adult and mature. And when I found out what the reasons were, I'm like, wow, he was duped just as much as I was. In fact, maybe more so. He thought I was mailing pieces of his daughter to him. Meanwhile, his daughter is safe. Doesn't want anything to do with him, but she's safe and secure. I understand where the guy's coming from. I honestly would sympathize, I think, with him.
Maybe
I would beat the crap out of him. I mean, you have to, really. You know, you gotta save face.
Maybe he found out what he did to his daughter, and as the protector of all things children, Reddington is, that just put him over the edge and said, nope, that's strike 3, you're out.
Do you think he was always going to kill him once he knew the truth?
I would assume that he wants to take the players off the board. If he cannot figure out a way to manipulate the players to work for his best interest and what he needs to accomplish, then they're in the way. So he takes them off the board because it's just that's the way to do it. I didn't see it coming. I thought they were going to have a bonding moment and maybe form some new thing for the what was it called, the Syndicate, Red's little group, and bring them into the Syndicate and join forces. But yeah, when it happened, I wasn't surprised.
Well, I mean, at least he does the old Russian thing where he lets them drink some vodka. They have a few laughs. Ha ha ha! Boom boom boom.
And he shot 4 times, not 3. I think Diane was only 3. So he must have been really pissed off about it. It's one shot for each bad thing he did, plus 1 for the fun of it.
That's one way to look at it. Okay, so you thought it was a fair deal for him. Do you think his daughter is okay now? I assume she's off wherever she wants to be. Red took care of her. Yeah,
basically got her passport, tickets, money. Don't have to see him again. Set her up. Thank you for your service. Have a good life.
Now explain this to me, because this is where I got a little bit confused. So he goes with Peter Stormare. He goes with Berlin to Moscow. They take out that guy. They separate. Now, at this point, he has to use the daughter to get a hold of him. Why? Did he just he lost track of him?
Yeah, he went off the grid into the wind. He meets with Alan, said Berlin could be coming for you. So he wants to find out where Alan is being held captive, because he knows that he's going to get to Alan before Red can get to Alan.
Right, but you would think at this point, wouldn't he have his phone number or something? I mean, they seem to be on better terms.
Yeah, but maybe after when he said you can't go after Alan, and Berlin's like, the hell I can't. I think that's where the phone number gets deleted from the contact book.
Is that how it works? All right. Well, I do think it was very sweet that he took care of her daughter, and she did get to escape him. I was really concerned that now she was going to be forced to have this man back in her life, and she obviously is afraid of him for whatever the reasons are. I don't know what he actually did to her other than made her life hell, but she obviously went through a lot of heck to get out of there. So now, Tom, we find out at the end of the episode that Tom has been working for Red. We don't know how long, because there is that conversation between him and Tom in the hospital last season where there's nobody in that room, in that hallway but him and Tom, and they don't seem to have a relationship at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to that sequence. Tom was going to Nebraska on behalf of Liz because Liz was busy with the task force. So he was going as the husband the question is did he already know at that point? If he was already working for Red, then he would have to know something about Sam. And maybe that's why he agreed to go to Nebraska so easily and didn't put up such a fight. Like, no, it's your dad. You got to stop working. You need to go, like a husband would. Mm-hmm. So because he just went, so yeah, no problem. I'll go take care of it. Maybe it was known all along. Because remember, at the end of the day, Red was the one that set up Tom and Gina Xanatakos with the boxes, with the symbol that looks like the scar going all the way back to season 1. And so if all of that was a ploy from the beginning, could they have always been working with Red? Because that's when Liz first doesn't trust Red. How could you do this? How could you set up my husband? Well, maybe it wasn't a setup. Maybe it was part of the plan the whole time.
I take that as he started working with him after that. I'm of the mindset that he didn't work for Red until after that moment because of the conversation. If they worked together before, then that scene doesn't work. And I think you need that scene to work because they did not, at that point, there was no reason for them to have a conversation as if they didn't know each other. There's nobody around. There's nobody tapped or bugged or anything.
We're around as the audience.
Right, but that's a cop-out to me.
We can't get that reveal that early. That's part of the story arc. That's part of the plan.
If you go back and watch the conversation, there is definitely an animosity, and it doesn't play like they have any knowledge of each other personally. It plays like they know who each other are, but it doesn't play like he worked for him. So for me, that seems to be he utilized him later for differing reasons.
But the conversation that happens at the end of the episode has got the same animosity. Hey, I never told her. I never told her anything. I held up our end of the deal. The whole time I was living with her.
That's true, but that conversation implies that they know each other, where in the hospital it didn't. And I went back and rewatched it, and there's really nothing given that gives the indication that they know each other. So to me, I don't know. I'm still in mind. It could play out differently, and maybe they could twist it and make it work because they make several things work. But for me personally, it would seem that they didn't start based on the timeline that the show has established. It doesn't seem like he worked for him until after that, based on what I've seen.
The question would be when then, because
that's a good question.
There was that scene where Tom's like, yeah, go look at the safe deposit box, Liz, with that key you found under the lamp. And you'll see that, Red was the one that was responsible for for Sam's death. Mm-hmm. So he throws his boss under the bus, or was that planned? So that way Liz and Red would have the confrontation they had so that Liz would do something that Red wanted. See, that's the problem with this show is like every single move could have been pre-planned. You just don't know if it's pre-planned or not.
That's true. But I'm holding fast with, I don't think that he worked for him at that time. I think maybe he utilized him later, and he was utilizing him to get to Berlin in some way. Once he realized that he could get to him, maybe when he was in the wind, maybe something along those lines. When he was, on the lam, so to speak, because I haven't used that phrase in a long time. So maybe that's when all that happened. But I think it was after her father died, her assumed father died. Covered that base. So let's go to, one more thing. What do you think's in the envelope?
Could be orders, go to St. Petersburg, encase the joint, make sure it's okay for me to go there.
Okay.
Could be the key that he got from Pepper.
It looks like it's something that he had to, fumble through, whether it be money, paper, something along those lines. So I don't know what it is, but I do think that there's got to be an interesting reason why they didn't just show us if it was money.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be at least documents or dossier or something, and maybe a 50 slipped in. 50K.
Like tucked in there, just tucked in the middle. Yeah, and before he leaves, Red stresses, don't ever see her again. He's like, I got it. And then he grabs him and says, no, don't. I don't ever want you to see her again.
Why?
Do you think that's out of caring or because he doesn't want his cover blown?
Yeah, that's the part that was also the head scratcher, right? It was, is he doing it as the protective parent? Or was he doing it as, if you see her again, you could blow my cover? And I could go both ways, honestly.
Right now, you're called on the carpet. Which way do you go?
I go with the don't see her, because if you see her, then I have to see you, and I don't want to see you because you got to shave.
That's an interesting. I'm going with the, because I'll take a position. Chicken. I go with the option that it's not because Tom can expose him, because obviously Tom hasn't, and he stresses that. I believe that what he wants is he wants him out of Keen's life, and I think he's wanted that for a while. My personal opinion. That's what I think.
Again, the question is why?
You think there could be varying reasons. I think this one is strictly emotional. I think he cares about her. Why? I don't know. Now, it could be because he needs her as a pawn, and he needs that pawn manipulated, or the ability to manipulate her, and Tom doesn't help that situation. That could easily be it. But I'm going with he genuinely cares for her, and he wants to protect her, at least from this.
I mean, I'll just throw one out for the shippers out there.
Oh, boy.
But could he just want him out because Red wants Liz all to himself? Interpret that as you will.
You're so creepy. For all the people that think he's her dad, you just creeped him out, and they all went, ew. You know that, right?
Hey, everybody has their own theories, and everybody's entitled to their own opinions.
Red. So who was Red torturing by death metal, by the way?
No idea. That was the weirdest scene.
It was so random. And like, what just happened? Was this important? I watched, when I rewatched it, I kept waiting for that to come up again. I'm like, it really doesn't come up. That is a total thing that they just threw in there just to make people giggle.
Yeah, we're just shaking some leaves from the tree. It's like, okay. You're shaking more than that. You're shaking the windows and the floorboards and even that poor guy who just wants a sandwich.
Do you know, did you notice that every kooky, wacky guy he extorts information from always has like some weird glasses? It's almost like it's their personal tics.
Weird glasses and weird tics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm serious. I thought that was hysterical. I laughed probably twice as hard the second time I watched it. Like, he's really using the old school death metal approach, man. I respect that. I haven't seen that.
I was waiting for Alan's apartment to be that same apartment. That would have been funny.
Oh, God, that would have been great. But Red, overall in this episode, what an SOB, right? I mean, he's kind of a jackass. I think we all love him. We think he's great. Love to hate him. I hate to love him. But when it comes down to it, Red is an SOB who is self-serving if I've ever seen anyone. Would you agree?
Only because he shoots Milos Berlin at the end. Because when he's standing in front of Alan, he's like, yeah, you and Margaret had a great life. You know, I understand. 83044, got it. St. Petersburg, boom, got it. I mean, he looked like he cared. He genuinely cares about people. I think we've talked about that before on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is he selfish? Absolutely. But is his selfish vendetta for a higher purpose that we haven't seen yet? So he's really a good guy in the end. Again, you're the I want him to be a bad guy the whole way through. I'm the could he be redeemed at some point?
I'm not. I want him to be the bad guy. I'm going from I think he is the bad guy. I think they're painting him to be perceived as a hero, so they can pull the wool out from under you at the end. That's what I think, because so many people are rooting for Red. I think so many people. You know, he's Darth Vader. People love to hate him. You know, he's just, he's doing despicable things, but you love him. He's just so cool and he's so charismatic. And a lot of that's James Spader and some of that's the writing, but a lot of that's James Spader. But what I believe is they are benefiting from that from the show's perspective, because I think they're going to play that card up until the end when we finally realize, this is my personal theory. This isn't, there's nothing that's been given that says this is the fact, obviously. Is they're going to play it to the end when you realize, oh crap, this whole time he always had a personal agenda, and Keen was never going to be a positive emotional pawn in that. She was always going to be a victim. She was never going to be anything positive for this situation. She was always going to be used by him. That's what I personally think.
That I agree with 100%. Liz is just a puppet in the whole thing. Or maybe we find out that Red was Liz's puppet the whole time. That would be a cool twist.
Oh, you are Mr. Theory. You son of a...
Well, you got me stuck on the Darth Vader thing, because then it was like, okay, well, Darth Vader's not the father. Anakin's really the father. So even though it's the same person, and it's like I had to kill her in my head in order for her to not be my daughter and all that stuff you were talking about. So...
Well, he does save Zoe, so I do think he has feelings. I think he has attachments to children. He has a thing for children because of his situation. And he also has a thing for loyalty. If you're loyal to him, I think he will respect you and he will support you 100%. But he's self-serving in the fact that as soon as you betray him in any way, even if I think if it's accidental, he's probably going to sick a pack of wild dogs on you. That's just how he is. Like, you had your shot. Sorry. So he threatens and sets up Fitch in this episode. Then he tries to save him for his own selfish and make no mistake, I do think that he cared about his well-being, but I also think he cared more about his because Fitch laid it on the table that, hey, if I die, you die. Right?
That's always been the mantra, though. That hasn't changed since Ansel Garrick Part 2.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So he makes amends with Keen, and then we find out really kind of how far his treachery really goes, but we don't really know exactly what he used Tom for. So at the end of this fall season, right at the end of this season, we're basically coming at the end of our episode. Where do you finally sit with Red?
I still say it's from the beginning. It was Red's blacklist, not the blacklist. It's people that Red needs to get out of his way to get to whatever end Red needs to get to. And he has not wavered from that mission since day one.
No, I mean, how do you feel about him? Are you still, you love him, hate him, love to hate him, what?
Oh, no, I think he's great. I love story time. I love him manipulating people. I love him killing people. All in all, the character as a whole is probably the most interesting character on TV since Jack Bauer. Like, there's just something about him that just resonates with you that goes, I can get behind this guy, even though I probably shouldn't get behind this guy because he probably is evil as all get out. But at the same time, you cheer for him every week.
See, I compare him very much to Walter White. Not the frenetic craziness, but the fact that every time I think I should hate him, I end up liking him for some reason. You know what I mean? Like, I know he's despicable because he does a lot of horrible things, but then he'll do something where I'm like, wow, he's really not as bad as his actions would dictate. And then he'll do something else where I'm like, he's really as bad as his actions dictate. You know, but you just got to love him. And how much of that goes to, well, actually, we don't give Megan Boone enough credit either. She does a wonderful job as Keen. Unfortunately, she's like in a comedy, she's the straight man. Where, you know, he is the Kevin Spacey in Seven. You know what I mean? He's the guy that gets the showy role and he gets to eat every piece of scenery he can find. And he's just gnawing it everywhere he goes. And she gets to be the straight. But she does a wonderful job too. And I think now that we've hit this fall season and we get this break and whatnot, I think it's important to remember that these two actors do a phenomenal job together. And I love both of their work.
And I would really like to see like a director's cut of this particular episode because I'd love to see those interrogation scenes longer because I'd love to see where Megan could take that darkness of that interrogation, especially with how slippery her slope has been this entire season so far.
Yeah, and that's, as we close out, that's my final question, and that's the one I want to pose to you. When it comes to Megan, when it comes to Keen, you know, she was really on this downward spiral for a lot of the season. So this season so far, right? I mean, she's gotten darker and darker, taken more and more chances, broken more and more laws. So as we round this out, and at the end, it seems like she's, you know, we see who we thought she always was, but she was getting away from. Do you think she's actually gotten back to who she was last season, or is she actually, that was just a facade?
No, it's a facade. She's damaged goods now.
You believe that? Huh?
Absolutely.
I'm with you 100%. I think that was definitely a facade. That was for show. She's learning the game as Red plays it. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode. We want to tell you guys, because some of you sent in feedback, and you're probably like, well, you're not even going to mention our feedback? Of course we are. We're not going to leave that out. That's one of our favorite parts of doing the show. But because we had so much, and the fall finale had so much to talk about, what we decided to do is we're going to do a separate episode. Kind of benefits twofold, because it's going to give you the option to send some stuff in. If you have more thoughts on the fall finale, or you have questions, or you have ideas about what you want us to do in the future, or what you want to see, or what you think is going to happen when we come back after the Super Bowl, when the Blacklist comes back, we would like you to do is, if you have any thoughts on the finale or anything that we talked about, the Fulcrum perhaps, then send them to goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. That's goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Just select the Blacklist. And in 2 weeks, we're going to come back with a new episode where we're going to go through all your feedback at the same time. It's basically going to be a listener appreciation podcast. We're going to give us plenty of time to put together a good show and hopefully talk about everything you want to talk about. We'll try to get as much of it in as we can. Definitely appreciate all the feedback. You guys have been great, really supportive. If you can always go to iTunes and rate us if you haven't, we really appreciate that as well. This has been a blast. And when we come back, when the show comes back over the Super Bowl, that's going to be pretty intense because you got 16 episodes in a row? Is that right? Or 14?
Yeah, I think they're going to do 22. So 22 minus 8 would be 14.
14 in a row. Wow.
And 2 in 1 week. That's going to be mind blowing.
Yeah. So we're going to be podcasted out that week, but we'll figure it all out. But that is going to conclude this particular episode. Be sure to come back in 2 weeks and we'll have that listener episode for you. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well at the Blacklist GSM. We live tweet during the East Coast feed when the show airs. We will always use the show's hashtag, the Blacklist. You can also tweet us there if you want to just talk to Troy or I. We also have a Facebook group. Just search for the Blacklist Exposed and join us for all the fun. Also go to the website and we have all the episode intel and analysis, as well as links to subscribe to the feed in iTunes and Stitcher. That way you don't miss an episode. I want to say that one more time. Because of such a long break, a lot of times when you follow a podcast, you might lose track of them or something because you forgot to subscribe because, it pops up every now and again. You find it, you hit it as you look through the iTunes directory. I would recommend, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher or your podcast app or whatever it is so that when we do come back, when the show comes back, we just pop back up in your feed. Right, Troy? That's very important.
Absolutely. Subscriptions are key. And if you're subscribing and love Red's Rhetoric, don't fret. We're going to include Red's Rhetoric for this episode, for the fall finale, in that special fan feedback episode, because, of course, that's where you guys all get to vote. So if there's a specific scene from the fall finale that you would like us to use for Red's Rhetoric, you could go ahead and submit that with your finale fan feedback. Again, goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Make sure you select the Blacklist as your podcast you're submitting for. Heck, you can even use our voicemail widget right there on the website to record from your computer or your smartphone, because we'd love to hear your crackpot theories from your actual voice. Most importantly, though, it does take a little bit to run the podcast, so if you can, head on over to goldenspiralmedia.com/Patreon. Even something as little as $1 a month really goes a long way from all of you, as we do have a pretty good core group of listeners now for the podcast. So you can get on over there, help us keep things up and running until we come back in February. That would be great. But most importantly, as we said again, subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker even. If you're a Spreaker user, you can go ahead and get the podcast out there. But until we do come back in 2 weeks for our special fan feedback of the fall finale, you could catch me over at resurrectionrevealed.com for my other podcast for Resurrection on the ABC Network, and follow me on Twitter at Troy Heinrichs.
And you can always find me talking about movies and TV at the Hollywood Outsider podcast. That is thehollywoodoutsider.com. It is fun. It is about movies, and it is fun. So check it out. We're also on Twitter at H_outsider. This is Aaron Peterson saying thanks, guys, for listening. Troy and I really appreciate it. Remember, if you're sending a question, get it in by November 21st. It would be great because that'll give us plenty of time. Definitely need it in no later than that, though. So any questions, thoughts, or concerns or whatever about the show, we definitely look forward to hearing from you. Be sure to subscribe, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of
The Blacklist. The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production, copyright 2014. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.